Good afternoon. We're going to read through this together over global winds and jet stream. Keep in mind you just took a quiz over local winds, convection currents. So this one is just expanding it out for global winds. So follow along, underline and highlight, or make sure you have something to write with as we're following along. And again, this should be glued into your spiral along with the other foldable pieces that you will be given. Wind is constantly occurring in different layers of the atmosphere. Wind is caused by air of different temperatures and densities moving from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. So we're going to highlight the word wind. This is one of the flaps that you have that will be filled in on the next couple of slides. Highlight or circle, and then I would underline that definition, and that's actually something that you should already have in your spiral from this last learning target. Next, global winds blow steadily across the earth in long paths that almost cover the entire surface and steer weather in certain directions. Our earth has global patterns of wind that constantly flow. These patterns begin at the equator. Let's highlight that right there. Remember, that's where most of our direct sunlight comes from, or is, and where the sun's rays are the strongest. Here, air is heated, becoming less dense, remember from our activity with the balloon, and moves north as well as south from the equator. As it cools and becomes more dense, some of that air sinks back towards the equator, causing convection cycle of air. The warm and steady winds that move towards the equator are called the trade winds. These winds occur between 0 and 30 degrees north and south of the equator. And you're going to actually fill those little arrows in on one of the next slides. You're going to see a picture of the earth, and you're going to draw the direction that the arrows go in. Although trade winds move north to south, they do not move directly up and down. The movement of these winds is curved due to the Coriolis effect. So let's highlight Coriolis effect, and let's underline that. So the movement of these winds is curved due to the Coriolis effect. Because the earth is constantly spinning, it causes the winds that move directly north and south to curve just a bit. There are two other types of global winds as you get further from the equator. Between 30 and 60 degrees north and south of the equator is the prevailing westerly winds, and this is actually where we're located at. These winds that come from the west and move east. Again, we talked about this in weather when we talked about the weather comes from the west for us and it moves east. Majority of the time when we see radar on the screen by weathermen, you see the radar or the storms moving across the screen from left to right or from west to east. These are responsible for much of the weather in the United States. The polar easterly winds occur at the 60-degree latitude in both hemispheres. So this would be at the North and the South Pole. Cool air from the east spreads and sinks over the surfaces and North and South poles and flows away from each pole, turning west by the Coriolis effect. Above the Earth's surface, there is a global high-altitude wind in the troposphere layer of the atmosphere called the jet stream. So we're going to highlight jet stream. Going to underline global high-altitude wind in the troposphere layer. Jet stream flows at 200 miles per hour from west to east in one or more bands across the globe. The jet stream is caused by two air masses in the troposphere. Remember, this is where weather occurs that have extremely different temperatures. The greater the temperature difference between the air masses, the faster the wind blows. The jet stream can steer weather across the country and give a boost of airplanes traveling from west to east. For example, it might take 5 hours to get from Washington to Massachusetts, but it take an hour longer if you go from Massachusetts back to Washington. Make sure this is glued into your spiral. Make sure you have these things underlined and highlighted, and then complete the next activity.